Zara stood in the cold metal room, her hands shaking as she looked at the 5 judges sitting high above her. The bright lights hurt her eyes, but she kept her head up. Next to her, Lyra was trying to look brave too, but Zara could see the fear in her friend's green eyes. Zara of the Eastern District and Lyra of the Western District, the head judge said in a voice that echoed through the room. You have been found guilty of spreading dangerous ideas among our people. You have spoken against our laws and our ways. Zara's heart was beating fast. She and Lyra had only wanted to help. Their planet, Kepler 442b, was beautiful and advanced, but the people who ruled it never wanted to talk to other planets. They thought they were better than everyone else in the galaxy. Zara and Lyra believed this was wrong. They thought their people should make friends with other worlds, share knowledge, and help each other. We were only trying to make things better, Zara said, her voice small in the big room. Silence, another judge shouted. You have filled young minds with foolish dreams. You made them question our perfect society. This cannot be allowed. Lyra stepped forward. She had always been good with words. Back home, she worked as a peacekeeper, helping people solve their problems without fighting. Please, honored judges, we meant no harm. We only wanted our people to grow and learn from others. Is that so wrong? The head judge's face was hard as stone. Our ancestors built this perfect world by staying away from the chaos of other planets. We are pure. We are advanced. We do not need the primitive ways of lesser beings. Zara felt anger rise in her chest. She was an engineer and had studied the technology of many planets. Earth, the blue planet in a far galaxy, had people who were creative and kind. They were not primitive at all. They just did things differently. The people of Earth are not primitive, Zara said, even though she knew she should stay quiet. They have art and music that moves the soul. They have love that crosses all barriers. They protect each other and their planet even when it's hard. The judges looked at each other and whispered. Finally, the head judge spoke again. Since you love these primitive worlds so much, you will go and live among them. We exile you to Earth, the planet you seem to admire. You will live as they live, without our advanced technology, without our comforts. Perhaps then you will understand why we stay separate. Zara's stomach dropped. Exile was the worst punishment their people could give. No one had been exiled in over 200 years. You will be given a basic escape pod and simple supplies, another judge continued. Your advanced abilities will be weakened by Earth's atmosphere. You will be alone, cut off from all you have known. Maybe this will teach you the value of our pure society. Lyra grabbed Zara's hand. They had been best friends since childhood. They had studied together, dreamed together, and now they would face this punishment together. How long will our exile last? Lyra asked. Until you have learned your lesson and beg to return, the head judge said with a cruel smile. If you survive long enough. 2 guards came and took them away. They were given 1 day to prepare for their journey. Zara packed her few tools, the ones that might work without advanced power sources. Lyra took her books and the small crystal that had belonged to her grandmother. The escape pod was small and cold. It had basic life support and enough food for a few weeks. There was a simple computer that would help them find Earth, but after that, they would be on their own. As the pod lifted off from their home planet, Zara looked down at the silver cities and crystal lakes she might never see again. Lyra was crying quietly beside her. Are you sorry we spoke out? Zara asked her friend. Lyra wiped her eyes and looked at her. No, if we had stayed quiet, nothing would ever change. At least now we tried. The journey to Earth took many days. The pod was cramped and uncomfortable. They had to ration their food carefully. At night, when one slept, the other would watch the stars and think about what waited for them on the distant blue planet. What if the Earth people don't accept us? Lyra asked one night, what if they do? Zara replied, what if they show us kindness that our own people couldn't? As they got closer to Earth, Zara tried to program the pod's landing system. But something went wrong. Maybe it was damaged from the long journey. Or maybe the judges had made sure they would have a rough arrival. The pod started shaking violently as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Hold on, Zara shouted over the noise. Fire surrounded the pod as it fell through the sky like a burning star. They crashed in a thick forest. Trees broke their fall, but the impact threw them around inside the pod like toys. When everything finally stopped moving, both girls were hurt and dizzy. Zara pushed open the pod's door. Sweet fresh air flowed in, so different from the clean, filtered air of their home planet. This air smelled of growing things, earth and rain. It was wild and alive. They stumbled out of the wrecked pod. Lyra had a cut on her forehead and Zara's arm was hurt, but they were alive. Around them, tall trees reached up to a sky filled with soft white clouds. Sunlight came through the leaves in golden streams. It was beautiful in a way their perfect, controlled world had never been. "The pod is completely broken," Zara said after checking the damage. "We can't call for help and we can't go home." "Then we learned to live here," Lyra said, though her voice shook a little. They spent their first night in the broken pod, listening to the strange sounds of the earth forest. Animals called to each other in the darkness. Wind moved through the leaves. Water trickled somewhere nearby. It was scary, but also somehow peaceful. The next morning, they explored their new world. Everything was so alive, so green. On their home planet, nature was controlled and managed. Here it grew wild and free. Flowers bloomed in bright colors they had never seen. Birds sang songs that made their hearts feel light, but they were also hungry and thirsty. The pod's food supply was running low and they didn't know what earth plants they could eat safely. Zara tried to use her engineering skills to fix something, anything, but without advanced tools she felt helpless. "On our world I could fix any machine," she said sadly. "Here, I don't even know how to make fire." Lyra tried to talk to the forest animals like she could back home, but Earth's atmosphere had weakened her abilities. The squirrels and birds looked at her with curious eyes but didn't understand. "We need to find help," Lyra said. "There must be people nearby." They had studied Earth before their trial. They knew humans lived in groups and built towns and cities. But they also knew humans could be dangerous to strangers, especially strange-looking strangers from another world. For days, they hid in the forest, living on berries and stream water. They watched the sky, hoping to see some sign of human life. Finally, they saw something in the distance, smoke rising from what looked like a town. "We have to take the chance," Zara said. "We can't survive much longer on our own." As they walked through the forest toward the distant smoke, both girls wondered what kind of reception they would get from the humans. Would they be kind, like Zara believed, or would they be cruel like the judges had predicted? Either way, their old life was over. Their real test was just beginning. They were no longer citizens of an advanced world. They were strangers on a planet that might become their home, if they were lucky enough to find acceptance among its people. The forest grew thinner as they walked, and soon they could see buildings through the trees. Their new life was waiting. 3 weeks had passed since the crash, and Zara's stomach hurt from hunger. She and Lyra had been living on wild berries and water from the stream. But it wasn't enough. They were getting weaker every day. Their clothes, once silver and smooth like everything from their home planet, were now torn and dirty. "We can't keep hiding," Lyra said as she sat by the broken escape pod. Her green eyes looked tired and sad. "We need real food and winter is coming." "I can feel it in the air," Zara nodded. She had been watching the town from behind the trees for days. The humans looked so different from each other. Some had dark skin, some light, some were tall, some short. On their planet, everyone looked almost the same. Here there was so much variety, and somehow that seemed beautiful. "What if they hurt us?" Zara asked, touching the small scar on her arm where she had been cut in the crash. "What if they don't?" Lyra replied. "We'll die here if we don't try." That morning, they walked into the town called Cedar Falls. The first building they saw was a small restaurant with a sign that said Betty's Diner. Through the windows they could see people eating and talking. The smell of cooking food made their mouths water. They pushed open the door and a little bell rang. Everyone in the restaurant turned to look at them. Zara felt her cheeks get hot. She and Lyra must have looked very strange with their torn silver clothes and wild hair. An older woman with gray hair and a friendly smile came over to them. She was wearing a white apron and carrying a coffee pot. "Well, hello there, girls," the woman said. "You two look like you've been through a storm. Come on, sit down anywhere you like." Zara and Lyra looked at each other. They had studied Earth languages, but hearing real human speech was different. They understood the words, but the woman's tone was warm and caring, not like the cold voices of the judges back home. They sat at a table by the window. The woman, who must be Betty, brought them 2 glasses of water and some small papers. "Here are your menus, sweethearts," Betty said. "Take your time looking them over." Zara stared at the paper. It had pictures of food and numbers next to them. On her planet, food was just delivered when you needed it. You didn't choose from lists or pay with money. "We are very hungry," Lyra said carefully. "But we have no money?" Betty's eyes grew soft with understanding. "Oh, honey, you two are in some kind of trouble, aren't you?" Don't you worry about money right now. When did you last eat a real meal? Many days, Zara admitted quietly. Without saying another word, Betty went to the kitchen. Soon she came back with 2 plates full of eggs, bread, and something called bacon. It smelled wonderful. Eat up, Betty said. We'll worry about everything else later. Zara had never tasted anything so good. The eggs were creamy and warm, the bread was soft, and the bacon was salty and crispy. On their planet, food was perfectly balanced for nutrition, but it all tasted the same. This food had flavor and personality, but then something went wrong. Zara was so excited about the food that she forgot to control her abilities. When she picked up her fork, it started to glow slightly. The lights in the restaurant flickered, and the coffee machine behind the counter made strange beeping sounds. Everyone stared. Some people whispered to each other. Betty looked confused but not scared. Must be electrical problems, Betty said, but her eyes stayed on Zara. Lyra kicked Zara under the table. They had to be more careful. But the damage was done. People were already talking about the strange girls who made lights flicker. After they finished eating, Betty wouldn't let them leave without taking some food with them. She packed sandwiches and fruit in a bag. You girls need to be safe, Betty said quietly. There are good people in this town, but there are also people who might not understand strangers. Be careful who you trust. As they walked out of the diner, Zara felt guilty. Betty had been so kind, and they had lied to her about who they really were. But what choice did they have? They spent the next few days sleeping in an old barn outside of town. But the weather was getting colder, and they needed better shelter. That's when they found the abandoned cabin in the forest. It was small and old, with broken windows and a door that didn't close properly. But it had a roof and walls, and it was hidden from the town by thick trees. They moved in and tried to make it comfortable with branches and leaves. Marcus Chen had been a park ranger for 5 years, and he knew every inch of the forest around Cedar Falls. He loved his job because it let him protect the wild places he cared about. The morning after a big storm, he was checking the trails for damage when he saw something that made him stop. Smoke was coming from the old Patterson cabin. That place had been empty for years. Who would be living there now? Marcus was careful as he walked closer. Maybe it was just campers who didn't know the cabin was on private land. He would ask them politely to move on, but when he looked through the broken window, he saw something that made his heart skip. 2 young women were sleeping on a bed of leaves and branches. One had silver-white hair, and the other had hair that seemed to change color in the light from dark blue to purple. They were thin and looked very tired. One of them, the one with silver hair, opened her eyes and saw him. She sat up quickly and shook her friend awake. Please don't run, Marcus said through the window. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're okay. The 2 women whispered to each other in a language he had never heard before. Then the one with the changing hair spoke. We are travelers, she said with an accent he couldn't place. We got lost. Marcus could see they were scared, but something about them seemed different. They moved with a strange grace, and their eyes seemed to hold secrets. But they were obviously in need of help. I'm Marcus, he said, keeping his voice gentle. This is my job, to help people in the forest. Are you hungry? Do you need medical help? The silver-haired girl touched her friend's arm, and they seemed to have a silent conversation. Finally, the purple-haired one spoke again. I am Lyra, and this is Zara. We have nowhere else to go. Something in her voice made Marcus want to help them. Maybe it was because they looked so lost and alone. Maybe it was because he had always been the kind of person who helped stray animals and people in trouble. Listen, he said. I know a place where you can stay. It's warm and safe, and the person who owns it is very kind. But first, let me bring you some real food and warm clothes. That afternoon, Marcus came back with supplies. He brought thick blankets, warm jackets, and bags of food from the store. He also brought something else. His friend, Elena. Elena Rodriguez was home from college for the summer. She was studying astronomy and had always been curious about everything. When Marcus told her about the strange women in the forest, she insisted on coming along. I don't believe in coincidences, Elena said as they walked through the trees. 2 women who speak an unknown language living in the woods right after you reported seeing that strange light in the sky last month? You think they're connected to the meteor? Marcus asked. I think there's more to this story than lost travelers, Elena replied. When they reached the cabin, Zara and Lyra were sitting outside, wearing the clothes Marcus had brought. The jackets were too big, but they looked warmer and more comfortable. Elena stared at them with scientific interest. There was something unusual about the way they sat, the way they moved, even the way they looked at the world around them. "Thank you for helping us," Lyra said to Marcus. Then she looked at Elena. "You study the stars." It wasn't a question. Somehow Lyra knew. "How did you—" Elena started to ask, then stopped. "Yes, I study astronomy." "How did you know that?" Lyra and Zara exchanged another look. Zara touched Elena's backpack, and suddenly her laptop inside began making soft beeping sounds, as if it was starting up by itself. Elena's eyes went wide. "How did you do that?" For a moment, nobody spoke. Marcus looked confused but not frightened. Elena looked amazed and a little scared. Zara and Lyra looked like they were trying to decide whether to run or stay. Finally, Zara spoke. "We are not from here. We are from very far away." "How far?" Elena whispered. Lyra pointed up at the sky. "Further than your telescopes can see." Marcus sat down heavily on a fallen log. Elena pulled out a small device and pointed it at the girls. It started making clicking sounds. "You're giving off some kind of energy," Elena said, staring at her detector. "This is impossible." "We didn't mean to cause trouble," Zara said sadly. "We just need somewhere to live." Marcus looked at both of them, these strange, beautiful, lost girls who had somehow traveled from the stars. His practical mind told him this was crazy, but his heart told him they needed help. "Okay," he said finally. "I believe you, and I want to help." Elena looked at him like he was insane, but then she looked back at her clicking detector and the way Zara made electronics respond to her touch. "This changes everything we know about life in the universe," Elena said quietly. "Does that mean you'll help us too?" Lyra asked hopefully. Elena stared at them for a long moment, thinking about all the implications. Then she smiled. "I've always wanted to meet someone from another world," she said. "I guess my wish came true." As the sun set behind the trees, 4 people sat together around a small fire, 2 humans and 2 aliens who were no longer alone. It was the beginning of friendships that would change all of their lives forever. 2 weeks after their first meeting, Marcus was teaching Zara how to identify different plants in the forest. She sat on a fallen log, watching as he gently touched the leaves of a small tree. "This is a maple tree," Marcus said. "In the fall, its leaves turn bright red and orange. It's one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see." Zara listened carefully. On her home planet, all trees were grown in controlled gardens. They never changed colors or dropped their leaves. Everything stayed the same, perfect and predictable. But here on Earth, plants lived and died and changed with the seasons. It was messy and wild, but somehow it made her heart feel full. "Why do you care so much about protecting the forest?" she asked Marcus. Marcus sat down next to her. His dark eyes looked thoughtful as he watched a squirrel run up a nearby tree. "When I was a kid, my grandfather used to bring me here," he said. "He taught me that every living thing has value. The trees, the animals, even the smallest insects, they all have their place. My people, we believe that humans are not the masters of nature. We are part of it." Zara felt something warm growing in her chest. Marcus's words reminded her of why she and Lyra had spoken out on their home planet. Their people thought they were better than everyone else in the universe, but Marcus understood that all life was connected. "Your grandfather sounds wise," she said softly. "He was," Marcus replied. "He would have liked you, I think. You see the world differently than most people." Zara looked at him and felt her cheeks get warm. Marcus was kind and gentle, but also strong. When he talked about protecting the Earth, his voice became passionate. She had never met anyone like him. Meanwhile, at Elena's house, Lyra was helping Elena work on her college project about distant planets. They sat at Elena's desk, surrounded by books and papers and Elena's laptop computer. "Tell me about your homeworld," Elena said, her pen ready to write. "What is it like?" Lyra closed her eyes and tried to find the right words. "Everything is clean and organized. Our cities are made of crystal and metal. We have machines that can do anything we need. No one is ever hungry or cold or sick." "That sounds perfect," Elena said. "That's what everyone thinks," Lyra replied sadly. "But perfect can be lonely. On my world, everyone thinks the same thoughts and follows the same rules. No one creates art or music that comes from the heart. No one asks questions or dreams of something different." Elena looked up from her writing. "Is that why you spoke out? Because you wanted things to be different?" "Yes," Lyra said. Zara and I believed that our people could learn from other worlds. We thought that meeting different kinds of life would make us better, not worse. Elena reached over and touched Lyra's hand. I think you were right. Some of the best discoveries in science come from mixing different ideas together. Lyra felt a strange flutter in her stomach when Elena touched her. Elena's hands were soft and warm, and her brown eyes were full of understanding. On Lyra's planet, people didn't touch each other much. Physical affection was considered unnecessary, but Elena's touch made her feel connected and cared for. Can I ask you something personal? Elena said quietly. Of course. Do your people fall in love? Lyra felt her face get hot. We have partnerships for creating children and sharing resources. But love, the kind of love I read about in Earth books, no. That was considered too emotional and unpredictable. That's sad, Elena said. Love is one of the most beautiful things about being alive. Is it? Lyra asked. She had been reading Earth stories and watching movies, trying to understand human emotions. What does it feel like? Elena smiled and her whole face lit up. It feels like finding a missing piece of yourself. Like everything makes more sense when that person is near you. Like you would do anything to make them happy. As Elena spoke, Lyra realized she was feeling something very similar when she looked at Elena. Her heart beat faster, and she wanted to stay close to her forever. Was this what humans called love? One evening, all four of them sat around a campfire near the old cabin. Marcus had brought marshmallows to roast, and Elena had brought her guitar. The fire crackled and sent sparks up into the dark sky full of stars. Zara, Marcus said, can you tell us more about your abilities? The way you can affect electrical things? Zara looked nervous. She still wasn't sure how much she should reveal. On my planet, we learn to work with energy from a young age. Our bodies can store and direct electrical power. But here on Earth, the atmosphere makes it harder to control. Can you show us? Elena asked excitedly. Zara looked at Lyra, who nodded encouragingly. Zara held out her hand toward Elena's flashlight. Slowly, the light began to glow brighter and brighter until it was almost like a tiny sun. Amazing, Marcus whispered. But then something went wrong. Zara had been feeling strong emotions all day, thinking about Marcus and how much she enjoyed being near him. Her powers reacted to her feelings, and suddenly all the electronics around the campfire began going crazy. Elena's radio started playing loud static. Her laptop screen flashed different colors, and even Marcus's digital watch began beeping wildly. I'm sorry, Zara said, trying to make it stop. But the more upset she got, the worse it became. Marcus reached out and took her hands in his. It's okay, he said calmly. Just breathe. You're safe. The moment Marcus touched her, Zara felt a calm feeling spread through her body. Her powers settled down and all the electronics stopped their noise. But something else happened too. A warm golden light seemed to flow between their joined hands. What's happening? Marcus asked, but he didn't let go of her hands. I don't know, Zara whispered. But she did know. She was falling in love with this kind, gentle human man, and somehow their connection was creating something beautiful. Lyra watched her friend and felt happy for her, but also a little jealous. She looked at Elena and found Elena already looking at her. Lyra, Elena said softly, can you show us your abilities too? Lyra nodded. She walked over to where a family of raccoons was watching them from the edge of the forest. She made soft sounds and slowly the raccoons came closer. Soon she was surrounded by forest animals, raccoons, squirrels, rabbits, and even a young deer. You're talking to them, Elena said in wonder. Not exactly talking, Lyra explained as she gently petted the deer. It's more like sharing feelings and simple ideas. But here on Earth, it's much harder than it was at home. Elena came and stood beside her. One of the rabbits hopped over and sniffed Elena's shoes. This is incredible, Elena said. You have a gift that could help us understand animals in a completely new way. Lyra felt proud and happy that Elena appreciated her abilities. But then Elena moved closer, and Lyra caught the scent of her hair like flowers and sunshine. Her heart started beating fast again. Elena, Lyra said quietly, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? I think I'm starting to understand what you meant about love. When I'm near you, I feel complete, like I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Elena's eyes went wide, and then she smiled the most beautiful smile Lyra had ever seen. I've been feeling the same way, Elena whispered. I was afraid you might not. That your people might not. We don't have to be like our people, Lyra said bravely. We can choose our own path. By the fire, Marcus and Zara were having their own quiet conversation. I need to tell you something, Marcus said, still holding her hands. I've never felt this way about anyone before. When I'm with you, everything seems brighter and more alive. Zara felt tears in her eyes, but they were happy tears. I feel the same way. But Marcus, I'm not human. We're so different. So what? Marcus said with a smile. My grandmother always told me that love doesn't see color or culture or any other differences. Love just sees the soul. What if I can't stay on Earth forever? What if my people come for me? Marcus squeezed her hands gently. Then we'll face that when it happens. But right now, in this moment, I want to be with you. As the fire burned low and the stars shone bright above them, both couples sat close together, holding hands and talking quietly. Zara rested her head on Marcus's shoulder and felt truly safe for the first time since leaving her home planet. Lyra and Elena shared their first kiss under the starlight, and both of them felt like they had discovered something more precious than all the treasures in the universe. They were no longer just four people who had met by accident. They were becoming something new, a family bound together not by blood or species, but by understanding and love. But none of them knew that high above in the dark sky, invisible to human eyes, a ship from Kepler 482b was scanning the Earth's surface, looking for two missing exiles. Their peaceful time together was about to come to an end. It was a beautiful morning in early autumn when everything changed. Zara was helping Marcus repair a broken fence near the ranger station when she suddenly stopped working and looked up at the sky with fear in her eyes. They're here, she whispered. Marcus looked up but saw only blue sky and white clouds. Who's here? Before Zara could answer, a low humming sound filled the air. It was so deep that Marcus felt it in his chest rather than heard it with his ears. Then, like magic, a silver ship appeared in the sky above them. It was long and smooth, nothing like the airplanes Marcus had seen before. We have to find Lyra and Elena, Zara said, grabbing Marcus's hand. Now, they ran through the forest toward Elena's house. The ship followed them overhead, moving silently through the air. Marcus had never been so scared in his life, but he held tight to Zara's hand and ran as fast as he could. At Elena's house, Lyra was teaching Elena words in her own language when they heard the humming sound. Lyra's face went white with terror. No, 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 she said, looking out the window at the silver ship. They found us. Who found you? Elena asked, but she was already packing important things into her backpack. She could see that Lyra was truly afraid. The retrieval team from my planet, Lyra said. They've come to take us back. A bright light shot down from the ship and hit the ground near Elena's house. When the light disappeared, 3 tall figures in silver suits stood in Elena's backyard. They wore helmets that covered their faces, and they carried weapons that glowed with blue energy. Lyra of the Western District, one of them said in a voice that sounded like metal scraping against stone. You will come with us immediately. I won't go, Lyra said, moving to stand in front of Elena. I choose to stay here. The leader of the 3 figures removed his helmet, and Elena gasped. He looked similar to Lyra, but his face was cold and hard. His eyes showed no warmth or kindness. I am Commander Vex, he said. I was your teacher once, Lyra. You know I do not make empty threats. Come willingly or we will take you by force. She said she won't go, Elena said bravely, stepping up beside Lyra. This is her choice. Commander Vex looked at Elena like she was an insect. Primitive human, you do not understand. These criminals belong to our civilization. They must return to face proper justice. The criminals? Elena asked angrily. What crime did they commit? Wanting peace between worlds? Believing that love is stronger than fear? The commander's face twisted with disgust. Love. You speak of that weak emotion as if it has value. Love makes people stupid and selfish. It has poisoned these two and made them forget their duty to their own kind. Just then, Marcus and Zara came running through the trees. When Zara saw Commander Vex, she stopped so suddenly that Marcus almost fell. Hello, Zara of the Eastern District, the commander said with a cold smile. You have caused us much trouble. The High Council is very angry with both of you. We won't go back, Zara said, trying to sound brave. We found something here that we never had on our world. We've found happiness. Happiness? Commander Vex laughed, but it was not a happy sound. You call living like animals in the dirt happiness? Look at you. Your clothes are dirty. Your hair is wild. You have forgotten who you are. No, Zara said firmly. I've remembered who I am. I'm someone who cares about others. Someone who wants to help and protect, not control and punish. Marcus stepped forward, his fear forgotten because someone was threatening the woman he loved. You can't just take them. They don't want to go with you. Commander Vex pointed his weapon at Marcus. Human, you have interfered with our people. That is a crime that deserves punishment. The blue energy weapon began to glow brighter and Marcus knew he was about to die. But suddenly Zara threw herself between them. Her whole body began to glow with golden light, and the commander's weapon stopped working. You will not hurt him, Zara said, and her voice carried power that made the trees shake. I will not let you hurt any of them. The other two soldiers raised their weapons, but Lyra was ready. She made a high, singing sound that brought every animal in the forest running toward them. Hundreds of birds filled the sky. Bears and deer came crashing through the bushes, and even the insects began swarming around the soldiers. Impossible, Commander Vex said, fighting off a very angry squirrel. Your powers should be too weak here to do this. Love makes us stronger, Lyra said, taking Elena's hand. Something you would never understand. For a few minutes it looked like Zara and Lyra might win. But then more ships appeared in the sky and more soldiers came down in beams of light. Soon they were surrounded by 20 armed figures. Enough games, Commander Vex said angrily. He pointed a different weapon at Marcus and Elena. Come with us now or we will destroy these humans and everyone in their town. Zara and Lyra looked at each other with despair. They could fight a few soldiers but not an entire fleet. And they could not let innocent people be hurt because of them. We'll come, Zara said quietly, but please leave the humans alone. No, Marcus shouted. There has to be another way, Commander Vex smiled coldly. There is no other way. These criminals will return home to face judgment. And to make sure they do not try to escape again, we will be taking several humans with us as insurance. What do you mean? Elena asked, though she was afraid to know the answer. We will take you in the mail, the commander said. If Zara and Lyra behave during the journey home, you will be returned to your planet unharmed. If they cause trouble, you will be left in space. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. Not only were they taking Zara away, but now Elena was in danger too. Please, Lyra begged her former teacher, take us but leave them here. They've done nothing wrong. They have corrupted you with their primitive emotions, Commander Vex said. Perhaps seeing them suffer will remind you of your true loyalty. The soldiers began pushing all four of them toward the waiting ships. But Elena was thinking fast. She was a scientist and she knew that every problem had a solution. Wait, she called out to Commander Vex. Before you take us, don't you want to know what we've learned about your people? We've been studying Zara and Lyra. We have scientific data about their abilities. The commander stopped walking. What kind of data? Elena pulled out her tablet computer. I've been recording how their powers work in Earth's atmosphere. I've discovered things about their biology that even they don't know. This was not entirely true, but Elena hoped to buy them some time to think of a real plan. Commander Vex looked interested despite himself. Show me. Elena began explaining fake scientific data, using complicated words and numbers. While she talked, she quietly whispered to Lyra, when I give the signal, you and Zara run toward the old cabin. Marcus and I will create a distraction. I won't leave you, Lyra whispered back. You have to, Elena said. Get to the cabin and use the radio there to call for help. Contact the military, the news, anyone who will listen. But what about you and Marcus? Elena looked into Lyra's beautiful eyes, seeing love and fear and determination there. We'll find each other again, she promised. I love you. I love you too, Lyra whispered. At that moment, Elena threw her tablet at Commander Vex's face and shouted, Run! Chaos exploded around them. Marcus tackled one of the soldiers and Elena kicked another in the knee. Zara sent electrical energy through all the soldiers' weapons, making them spark and stop working. Lyra called every bird in the forest to attack the aliens' eyes. In the confusion, Zara and Lyra began running toward the forest. But before they could escape, more soldiers appeared and surrounded Elena and Marcus. Commander Vex wiped blood from his nose where the tablet had hit him. Clever humans, he said angrily, but not clever enough. He pointed his backup weapon at Marcus. Zara, Lyra, stop running or I will kill this human right now. Zara and Lyra froze at the edge of the forest. They turned around and saw the weapon pointed at Marcus's head. "Your choice," Commander Vex called out. "Come back now or watch your friends die." With tears in their eyes, Zara and Lyra walked slowly back toward the ships. They knew they were beaten, but they also knew something that Commander Vex did not know yet. Their love for Marcus and Elena, and the humans' love for them, had made them stronger than ever before. This was not over. It was just the beginning of the real fight. As the silver ships lifted off from Earth, carrying 4 hearts that refused to give up hope, the forest below seemed to whisper promises that love would find a way to bring them all home. The inside of the alien ship was cold and white, like everything from Zara and Lyra's homeworld. Marcus and Elena sat in a small holding cell, watching through the clear walls as stars moved past outside. They had been flying for 3 days, and both humans felt scared and sick from the strange motion of space travel. In another part of the ship, Zara and Lyra were kept in separate rooms. Commander Vex wanted to make sure they could not help each other escape. But he had made one mistake. He had let them see that Marcus and Elena were alive and safe. On the 4th day, Commander Vex came to speak with Lyra. He looked tired, and his cold face showed something that might have been sadness. "Lyra," he said, sitting across from her in the small white room, "you were my best student. I taught you everything about peace and diplomacy."
"How did you come to this?"
Lyra looked at her old teacher with pity. "You taught me about peace, but you never taught me about love. You never taught me about the joy of caring for someone more than yourself." "Love is weakness," Commander Vex said, but his voice was not as strong as usual. "It makes people do foolish things. It makes them betray their own kind." "No," Lyra said firmly. "Love is what makes life worth living. On our world, people exist, but they do not truly live. They follow rules and do their jobs, but they never feel the happiness that comes from deep connection with another soul." Commander Vex was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised Lyra. "The High Council has changed since you left," he admitted. "Your words, your ideas about working with other worlds, they have spread among our people. Many now believe you were right." Lyra's heart jumped with hope. "What do you mean?" "There have been protests. Young people demanding that we contact other civilizations. Some of the judges who sentenced you have been removed from power. Our world is changing. Then why are you bringing us back as prisoners?" Lyra asked. Commander Vex looked away. "Because the old leaders still have some power, and because I was ordered to bring you home." "But what do you believe, Commander? In your heart, do you think we were wrong to want peace between worlds?" For the first time since she had known him, Lyra saw tears in Commander Vex's eyes. "No," he whispered. "I think perhaps you were the bravest of us all." Meanwhile, in her cell, Zara was working on something that might save them all. She had been studying the ship's electrical systems for days, learning how they worked. Her powers might be weaker in space than on Earth, but she was still an engineer and she still understood energy. Late that night, she sent a small pulse of electricity through the walls. It was so gentle that the ship's computers did not notice, but it carried a message to Lyra. "Be ready. Tomorrow we make our choice." The next morning, they arrived at Kepler 442b. Zara and Lyra looked out at their home world with mixed feelings. It was beautiful, with its crystal cities and silver towers reaching up to the purple sky, but it also looked cold and empty compared to the wild, living forests of Earth. Marcus and Elena were brought to see the planet through the ship's windows. "It's incredible," Elena whispered, her scientist mind amazed by the advanced civilization. "But it feels so lonely." "Now you understand why they wanted to leave," Marcus said, putting his arm around her. They landed at the Grand Council building, where hundreds of people had gathered to see the return of the famous exiles. Some held signs calling for their punishment, but others held signs calling them heroes. Commander Vex had been right. Their world was divided. As they walked from the ship to the building, Commander Vex spoke quietly to Zara and Lyra. "I have something to tell you," he said. "Your exile was not really a punishment. It was a test." "What?" Zara asked in shock. "The High Council wanted to see if you would stick to your beliefs or if you would give up and beg to come home. You passed their test, but not in the way they expected." "I don't understand," Lyra said. "They thought you would fail on a primitive world and come crawling back, grateful for your advanced civilization. Instead, you thrived. You found happiness, and your messages home talking about love and connection have inspired a revolution. Commander Vex stopped walking and turned to face them. The new leaders want to offer you full pardons. They want you to return as heroes and help them create a new kind of society, one that reaches out to other worlds instead of hiding from them. Zara and Lyra looked at each other in amazement. Everything they had dreamed of for their people was finally possible. There's just one condition, Commander Vex added. You must leave the humans behind. You must choose between your old world and your new love. The four friends were brought before the Grand Council. The new head judge was a young woman with kind eyes, very different from the old judges who had sentenced them. Zara and Lyra, she said in a warm voice, you have proven that our old ways were wrong. We want to welcome you home as leaders of a new age. Will you help us build bridges to other worlds? It was everything they had ever wanted for their people. But as Zara looked at Marcus and Lyra looked at Elena, they both knew what their answer would be. We are honored by your offer, Lyra said carefully, but we cannot accept it. Gasps filled the council chamber. Even Commander Vex looked surprised. May I ask why? The head judge said. Zara stepped forward. Because home is not a place. Home is where you are loved and accepted for who you truly are. We found that on Earth with these humans who showed us kindness when our own people had thrown us away. But think of what you could accomplish here, another council member said. You could help us create the peaceful future you always dreamed of. We can still do that, Lyra said with growing confidence. But we want to do it as ambassadors from Earth. Let us return to the planet that welcomed us. Let us live there and send you reports about what we learn. Let us be the bridge between our worlds. The council members whispered among themselves. This was not what they had planned. Finally, the head judge spoke again. And what of the humans? They have seen our technology and our world. They know secrets that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Elena stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. We understand the responsibility that comes with this knowledge. We promise to use it only to help both our peoples understand each other better. Marcus nodded. We don't want to cause trouble between our worlds. We just want to live in peace with the people we love. Commander Vex suddenly spoke up. I support their request, he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. These four have shown us something we had forgotten, that love and trust between different peoples is possible. Let them be our first experiment in peaceful contact. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. We will allow this, the head judge said. Zara and Lyra may return to Earth as our unofficial ambassadors. They will send us regular reports about human culture and the possibilities for future cooperation. The humans may return with them, but they must promise to keep our existence secret until both worlds are ready for open contact. Tears of joy filled everyone's eyes. They had won something that seemed impossible, the right to choose love over duty, and the chance to help both worlds at the same time. As they prepared to leave Kepler 442b, Commander Vex came to say goodbye. I misjudged you, he told them. I thought love would make you weak, but it has made you stronger and braver than I ever was. It's not too late for you to learn, Lyra said kindly. Love is not just for young people or for humans. It's for anyone who is willing to open their heart. Commander Vex smiled, the first real smile they had ever seen from him. Perhaps you're right. Perhaps it's time for me to try. The journey back to Earth felt like flying toward heaven. When they finally landed in the forest near Cedar Falls, all four of them knelt down and kissed the ground. They were home. 1 year later, they had built a small house near the old cabin where they first became friends. Zara worked as a park ranger with Marcus, using her abilities to help heal sick animals and plants. Lyra and Elena had started a research center where they studied ways to bring human and alien knowledge together. Every few months, they sent reports to Kepler 442b about the wonderful things they were learning. Slowly, both worlds were getting ready for the day when they could meet as friends. But the most important thing they had learned was that love truly was the most powerful force in the universe. It had brought them together across the stars, given them the courage to fight for what they believed in, and shown them that home was not a place on a map, but wherever your heart felt complete. As they sat together watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, Zara took Marcus's hand and Lyra kissed Elena softly. They were no longer exiles or aliens or strangers. They were a family, bound together by love that was stronger than any distance, any difference, any force that tried to pull them apart. And in the growing twilight, the stars began to shine, not as distant cold lights, but as bridges connecting all the worlds where love might bloom.